Gosh, I never can all three services get that right. I was so excited. 8 o'clock, it was bam, it was perfect. Anyway, good morning. Hey, for those of you that I've never met, you're thinking I'm maybe glad I haven't met you, but my name's Jeff. I have the privilege to work here with Connections, with new folks. If you are new here, Kurt Jones is our, what I call a real pastor, right? He's on vacation this week, and pray for him. But if you endure me for a few minutes, he will be back, I promise, all right? I love this church and just thankful for the privilege to be able to just spend a few moments with you. If you have a Bible, you can turn to Matthew chapter 17. We'll look at that in just a moment. We are walking through the book of Matthew, and we're in this series with the price of right, as we think about, there's just something about that song coming on after worship that just kind of weirds me out every time we do that. But anyway, I want to say happy Father's Day to all of the men here. I don't know, Pete, if you mentioned this or not, I was too busy being angry at you for dogging me, but I will tell you this, my message is going to be shorter than his welcome, all right? So that's one great thing about today. You probably mentioned this, but if you haven't stopped, there's food outside that is absolutely, I haven't tasted it yet, but I will before the day is over, but it looks absolutely amazing. Can anybody give testimony? Was it good? Yeah, all right, 3 of y'all. All right, great. If you didn't stop, go out there afterwards. I promise you, you will not be disappointed. But it is Father's Day. A little bit about me, all right? I have 6 children that I have been in a father-child relationship with over the course of their lives. And you may say, that is a very weird way to say it. Well, it is weird, but I want to explain to you what I mean by that, all right? They came to our lives in different ways. Our oldest 2 are my wife's nephews that we raised in middle school and high school. All right. The oldest one is Joe. He's 31, 2, somewhere in that area, right? 31 or 32, right? I'm lucky to remember there's 6 of them, all right? And then there's Justin, which is Joe's brother, he came to Livis Middle School and High School. He's in his mid to late 20s, 26, 27, something around there, all right? And then we have 2 girls that are ours biologically, Taylor, who is 23, I believe, right? I'm asking Pete like he knows, right? And then Hannah, who is 22. And then we have 2 children that we adopted, Mason, who's 14, and Harper, who is 9. So here's what's interesting about when you have a family like that, which may explain a lot about who I am and all the stuff about me, right? But they came into our lives different ways. They came into our lives at different points in their life, which meant that they all had different experiences. They all had different things that they brought to the table. There's different personalities. And if you have that many children, you love them all. You love them all the same. But there's some of them that give you less gray hair than others. Can I get a witness about that, right? It's not that you love some more than others, but there's just some that are easier children to raise. Not saying anything about my sweet, wonderful daughter, Harper, who's in the back of the room, but in the last 9 years, I have a lot more gray hair now than I did 9 years ago. I'll just leave it at that, all right? But they're all different, but I love them all. But here's the thing, is that regardless of what experiences we've had, regardless of how the relationship was initiated, whether it was through biologically or whether it's through family or whether it's through adoption, all 6 of them, if they called me right now, I would drop everything and go straight to them. If they needed me, I would be there. 3 of them live with me. 1 of them lives in Mississippi, 1 lives in Alabama, and the other one, I'm still mad about this, she moved all the way to Fayetteville, Arkansas, which you cannot get there from here, right? It's 9.5 hours away of pure torture, right? But if she called, in 10 minutes, I'll be in my car. Pete, you'll have to finish the service, and I'm going straight to her because if she needs me, I'm going to be there. You know why? Because they're my children. Because as a father, I love them. But here's what I want you to see as we look at this story today, is that that's me with all of my imperfections, with all of the selfishness that I bring to the table, with all of the ways that I don't love the way that I should, and then I'm not always the father that I should be, there's all this sin and imperfection in my life, but yet I still love them unconditionally. I would literally die for any of them. So how much more could a holy God, who is the picture of perfect love, how much more would he do for his children? How much more does he have the ability to love us far beyond what we could ever dream or imagine? And today on Father's Day, regardless of how you feel about the day and regardless of what experiences you bring into a day like this, some of the emotions that you feel may not be as positive as the ones I feel. This may be an absolutely difficult day for you, whether as a father or in relationship to your earthly father. That regardless of how you feel about any of that, what you need to know today is that you have a Father who loves you more than you can possibly imagine. Matthew chapter 17. And if you don't have a Bible, in the chairs and the racks in front of you, there are some Bibles that look like these. I bring this up here so that we have that, so that you know about that. We'd love that to be, if you don't have a Bible, take that with you. That's our gift to you. But I will also tell you that I'm not going to open and read it because the words are way too small for me. Even with my readers on, I still can't see the word. That's called old people problems, all right? So if you need a large print edition, once again, see Pete. He will get you one, all right? But here's what it says. Matthew chapter 17, beginning in verse 24. It says, when they came to Capernaum, the collectors of the 2 drachma tax went up to Peter and said, does your teacher not pay the tax? So they're talking about Jesus. But I want you to understand what's happening here, because when you read the Bible, especially in the New Testament, anytime they talk about tax collectors, it's usually talking about the people that work for the Roman government. And they would come and they were deceitful, they were liars, they were thieves, they were bad, bad people. That's not what this is. This is not a government tax that we're talking about here. This was for the temple. This was a tax that the people of God, that they would, much like what we do in the church today, that those of us that are members of the church, we give based on what we've been given. We give to the church for the work of the ministry. This is very similar. So this is not a bad thing, right? This is not a negative thing that they're asking for. This is for giving to the church. And he says to Peter, does your teacher not pay the tax? Because they didn't know what to do with Jesus. They wanted to see whether or not Jesus was going to support the church, right? They wanted to see whether or not Jesus was going to give like everyone else that claimed to be followers of God, if he was going to give to the church. And so Peter's response to him is yes. Now, Peter didn't ask Jesus. He just responded, well, yes, we're going to give. And we don't know the context of whether he just assumed Jesus was or whether he was trying to protect Jesus. We don't know what the reasoning was, but he just said, yes, he's going to pay the tax. So when he came into the house, so he's outside having this conversation. Jesus and the other disciples are inside. When he comes into the house, Jesus spoke to him first. That's a key word there, right? Because it was before Peter could ever say anything about the tax, before he could ever ask any questions. Jesus just starts talking because Jesus already knew about the conversation outside. He has a relationship advantage because he already knows everything before it happens, right? So he is going to say, I'm not going to miss this opportunity, Peter, to teach you a lesson. So Jesus takes the question that was asked outside, he brings it inside, and he begins to talk to Peter about all of this deal related to the tax, and he's doing it to teach him a lesson. He's doing it to teach him a lesson about the provision that God has for his people. So, here's what he says. What do you think, Simon? From whom do the kings of the earth take toll or tax? From their sons or from others? Which is a good question, right? If the king wants to raise money, if he wants to get a tax from someone, he's not going to ask his son or his daughter. He's not going to ask his children. He's not going to ask those that are heirs to his kingdom. He's going to ask other people to pay that. In this story, he's setting up who the authority is. And understand this, in everything that Jesus does throughout the Gospels, but specifically in the book of Matthew, he is talking about he is the king and what the kingdom of God should look like. So he's establishing that through the story. So from their sons or from others. And when he said, well, there it is. And when he said, from others, that was his answer, Jesus said to him, then the sons are free. He says the sons are not required to pay the tax. The sons are not required to do what others are because of who they are. They are children of the king. But then look at the next verse. However, as not to give an offense to them, go to the sea, cast a hook, and take the first fish that comes up. Go ahead. And when you open its mouth, you will find a shekel. Take that and give it to them for me and for yourself. Now, some of you are thinking, man, this Father's Day, I wish I was fishing instead of sitting here in church, right? Well, just hang on, all right? We'll be done in a few minutes. Also, here's another side note that has nothing to do with anything spiritual, but this is the only time in the New Testament where they talk about fishing, where they put a line in the water as opposed to using a net. I have no idea why I told you that, but now you know that, all right? So anyway, but this is an interesting story because he uses a miracle to teach a lesson, and we'll get to the miracle in a minute. But I want you to see what Jesus does with Peter here, because basically he calls him to go fish. He calls him to take this shekel and to pay a tax that he just told him they don't have to pay. So why in the world would he use this story? What is it he is trying to teach? There's just two things I want you to see about God's provision through this story. Number one is this. God's provision is about love. It's not about obligation. Jesus established himself as the authority. And basically what he said to Peter is, I know they asked if we're going to pay the tax. I don't have to pay the tax because I am the king. This is my church. I own this. I'm the one that's going to die for this. Everything about this is under my authority. I am not obligated to do that. But yet he still paid the tax, didn't he? Yet he still did something, and the reason that he did it is he wanted to show Peter that, hey, I want you to understand that what we are doing is not about what we have to, but it's about what we get to, and it is rooted in my love for the church. And ultimately, it is rooted in my love, Peter, for you. And so I want you to see an example. I want you to see a model that everything that I provide for you is not because I have to, it's because I want to. My second oldest daughter, Hannah, she got married this past weekend. Here's a picture, right? So you can obviously see that she got her good looks from her dad, right? Obviously, no question about that, right? But when I look at this picture, there's a few things that I see. Number one, I see that I am flat broke. I don't mean like metaphorically. I mean, I am broke. I mean, there is a hole that we have dug for ourselves. I got to have a ladder to get out of it. I mean, it ain't going to happen, but I'm broke, okay? That's the reality. But when I look at this picture, I see a guy that is the picture of what Wendy and I have prayed for since Hannah was born. And I thank God for a young man that loves Jesus and that loves my daughter and is going to lead her in a way that is going to honor God and going to change the world. I am so thrilled about that. But you know what else I see in that picture? I see a girl that I love with all my heart, that all last weekend, during all the festivities of the wedding, the rehearsal dinner, the wedding reception, she was smiling from ear to ear. I mean, there was an excitement and a joy that was in her that made my heart just sing. And because of that, if I had to do it all over again, Man, I would spend 5 times the amount of money I did if it meant I got to see that again. Now, I'm going to need a loan from some of y'all if I spend 5 times the amount, right? But I would gladly do it because the provision, is it supposed to be that the father of the bride is obligated to pay for the wedding? That's the way it's supposed to be. But for me, I did it because I love her. I was willing to sacrifice things for ourselves so that she could have the wedding that she wanted. I provided for her, and it was not something that I did begrudgingly. I did it because I love her. There was even times that her mom said no to some things, and she called me on the side and said, Dad, can we spend the money? And I, of course, said yes. She knows I'm a sucker. That's why she called me, right? But I did it because I love her. And what I want you to see is, like I said at the beginning, that everything that God does, when God provides because He loves you, not because you deserve it. Some of you here today are unwilling to receive the blessings that God wants to bring into your life. You're unwilling to accept the fact that Jesus could give you a different life than you have. You're not sure if there's any way that God could ever forgive you of the stuff you've done. But what I want you to see, that what He does for you, what He desires to do for you, what He provides for you, is because He loves you with all of His heart. And there's nothing you can do to change that. God doesn't need you. God doesn't have to do things for you. You see, we get caught up in this mindset that somehow that because God is a good God and God is a merciful God and that God is a gracious God, well, He has to be nice to me. No, He doesn't. But it's in His character and it's in His desire to provide things for you because He loves you with all of His heart. And what that means is you can trust Him. That means is what you can do is you can take a deep breath no matter who you are or what your life looks like. Take a deep breath and know that God is willing and able to provide for you because He loves you with all of His heart. Number 2 is this. God's provision is for you, but it's not about you. I need somebody to make sure Kurt Jones sees that statement because that's my statement. That is the most Kurt Jones statement I've ever said in my entire life. I'm proud of myself for that one. God's provision is for you, but it's not about you. You see, this is where we get mixed up. This is where this story could have gone off track. Because Jesus could have said, hey, the sons are free. And Peter would have said, man, forget that tax. We ain't paying that tax. We don't have to do that. Because in that situation, he would have been making everything about Peter. But what Jesus was teaching him is, hey, we're about something that's much bigger. We're about something that's a much bigger challenge in life. We're about a kingdom-minded thing, not just about you. Because what happens is if we're not careful, if we believe the first part that God loves me and wants to provide for me, then we begin to say, well, God, these are the things that my life needs. This is the way that I want my life to look. And God, now your job is to bless me. Your job is to give me what I need. Your job is to get me out of these situations and the problems that I create. God, I have all the things mapped out. Now, God, you do them, and then when He doesn't do them, we get mad at Him. And what we've done is we've mistakenly put ourselves in the main, the main character in this plot that God's creating. And the reality is that there is a story and that God is the author of that story, but it's about something much bigger than you. So here's what you need to understand, even within this miracle that He does. This is a simple story. It's an amazing miracle, right? Because there is a fish that somehow has a coin in their mouth, but they didn't swallow it. It's just in their mouth, right? And they're in the water at the right time and in the right place where Peter goes. And when he throws his line into the water, the first thing that he catches is this fish, and he's able to pull that out. That is miraculous, right? Did Jesus do that so the tax could be paid? No. But did He provide for the tax when He did the miracle? Yes. And that's a picture of our lives. God will provide for his children. Whatever you're walking through, God will give you what you need. Whatever's happening in your life that's beyond your control and you don't see any way out, there is a way out, and God will make a way. God is going to provide because he loves you. But as he provides, know this, that God's not doing that just to make you happy. God's not doing that just to do the things that you want done, because it's about something much bigger than that. It's really a picture of what Jesus wants us to see about our lives. Because when you stop and recognize that life's not about you, you will actually be in a much better place than you are right now. Because what you need to remember is that no matter what you have, no matter what God does for you, if it's about you, it's never enough. Have you ever been happy with the stuff that you have? Maybe for a period of time. But I'll just give you this simple illustration. I may have shared this with you before, but the reality is that many of us in this room have paid money for things on credit cards that we could not afford because we had to have it right then. We couldn't wait till we could actually afford it. And then maybe months or years later, we sell it at a garage sale for 25 cents. Why? Because it's no longer the thing that we need. We've moved on to something else. And for some of you in this room, you've built your life around you and what you want and what you think that you need. And there's this emptiness that's inside of you. There's something inside of you that's just not right, and you're never satisfied. And the reason is because what God has designed you to do is not to fulfill your own needs. At the core, if you remove all of our selfishness, everything away, at the heart of who we are, what God has designed us to do is to worship him. And anything else that is our motivation in life besides worshiping him is going to leave us empty. And if we pursue it hard enough and long enough, it will end in destruction. So God's going to provide for you. But we need to live our lives with the understanding that it's not about us. It's about something that's much bigger. And so here's the question, what do we do with that? What do you and I today do with that information? If that's who God is, what does that mean for us? And here's the application, and we're going to be done. And that is this: if the Lord is truly our provider, and he is, but if you really believe that the Lord is our provider, when we come to that place, we embrace the cost of just doing what's right. We embrace the cost of saying, I'm going to do what's right. God, I don't understand all this kingdom stuff that you're doing. And God, I don't understand why my life is the way it is. And God, I can't look in the future and see how anything good is going to come of this. Or I'm scared about all of these decisions and all of this, the things related to my life. But God, I don't understand all of that. But I'm going to trust you to provide. And I'm just going to do what's right. There's freedom in that. There's freedom in coming to a place in your life to where you just say, I'm going to do exactly what I know God wants me to do. If God says go, I'm going to go. If God says remove that from my life, I'm going to remove that from my life. If God tells me to do something, I'm going to do it. I'm going to do everything I can to walk with him. And the things I don't understand, I'm going to ask God for understanding as I walk. But as I'm walking, God, I trust you for all of that stuff. God, I'm going to do what's right in front of me. And I'm telling you, whether you're beginning a journey with Jesus or whether you've been a Christian for multiple decades, the answer for everyone in this room is to trust God for his provision and just do what is right. So the question is for you today is, what's right? What is it that God is calling you to do? What is it that needs to be removed? What is it that needs to change? What is it that is happening in your life that you need to say, God, I trust you out here, but I'm just going to follow you? And that today is where you need to begin. And so I'm going to ask you, if you would, just to bow your heads and close your eyes for a moment. And I want you to think about what that is. For some of you this morning, where you need to begin is with a personal relationship with Jesus. You see, because all this stuff that we do is not just about religion, it's not about just attending church. It's about people that have made a decision to follow Jesus with their life. And if you don't know him today, we've already established the fact that he loves you. Right where you are and right the way you are, he loves you. And what he calls you to do today, he called me to do years ago, what he's called every person in this room to do is to come to a place in your life where you say, God, I know that I'm a sinner. I believe that you died for my sins. God, forgive me of my sins. God, I give you my life. For some of you today, that's where you need to start. For others of you that are followers of Jesus, what is the right thing in your life that you need to embrace today? What needs to be removed? What needs to change? Do you trust him enough? Do you trust his plan enough to just do what is right? As you contemplate those things today, my challenge for you is, as we're going to worship together for just a moment, is for you to come to a place where either privately or publicly you make application of what God wants for you. When we sing in a moment, there's going to be people that are standing across the front of this stage, and we're not here to call you out. We're not here to embarrass you. But sometimes when God speaks, he speaks and asks you to move immediately. And if there's something inside of you that says, I need to talk to someone, I want to pray with someone, as we sing in a moment, that's the reason why we're standing here. So if you want to come, you come. I promise you, we will not do anything to call you out or embarrass you. And so today,